If there were chariots found in the Red Sea, it would probably have something to do with the crossing of the sea.
How is it possible that the remains of an event that occurred centuries ago would be found fresh and looking almost like yesterday? Well, that possibility became a reality just recently when divers found Pharaoh's army beneath the Red Sea. This is not easy to believe until you watch to the end. Did they really find Pharaoh's army? Or was it some kind of misconception? Join us in this video as we unravel the secrets of what these divers recently found beneath the Red Sea. The expedition to discover the unknown. $10 million quietly disappeared into a mission no one was supposed to know about. Not a university project, not a documentary crew. This was a covert operation. Former military divers, advanced sonar equipment, and coordinates left behind decades ago by a man the scientific establishment had long dismissed as a fraud. In late 2024, they descended into the Red Sea. What they claimed to have found should have shaken the world. An entire Egyptian army was scattered across the seabed, as if time itself had paused. Hundreds of chariot wheels, their spokes matching the distinctive design used by Pharaoh's elite forces. Horse skeletons still aligned, as though they had been harnessed when the waters closed in. Human remains twisted among the wreckage, and beneath layers of coral, flashes of gold catch the light. This wasn't a shipwreck. It looked like a battlefield swallowed whole, a discovery powerful enough to force historians back to their desks and rewrite what they thought they knew. But here's the part no one is discussing. When the findings were quietly presented to leading Egyptologists around the world, there was no celebration, no public debate, just silence. Then came something even more unsettling. When the team compared their high-definition sonar scans with documentation recorded 40 years earlier, they noticed entire sections of the debris field were missing, not eroded by currents, not buried by sand. Gone. In their place were drag marks etched across the seafloor, the kind left when something heavy has been deliberately pulled away. Evidence doesn't simply disappear on its own. And this expedition? It wasn't an academic study destined for an obscure journal. It wasn't meant to gather dust in a library. It was something else entirely. This wasn't some casual research trip. It was a covert operation, privately funded with more than $10 million from backers whose identities have never been made public. The team was carefully assembled. Elite deep-sea divers, former military underwater archaeologists who had grown tired of bureaucracy and academic politics, engineers trained to handle equipment that most research institutions could only dream of accessing. They came prepared. Advanced side-scan sonar capable of mapping the seafloor in stunning detail. Military-grade remotely operated vehicles equipped with high-definition cameras are built to function in crushing darkness hundreds of feet below the surface. Hypersensitive magnetometers designed to detect traces of metal buried beneath layers of sand and coral. This wasn't amateur exploration. It was a calculated, precision-driven mission aimed at a mystery that had lingered for more than 40 years. How did these divers go about finding the remains and getting to the parts that were missing? Keep watching to find out. What they found. Get ready for shivers. They began in the Gulf of Aqaba, that narrow arm of the Red Sea dividing the Sinai Peninsula from Saudi Arabia. The reported discoveries stretched across a wide coastal area shared by both Saudi Arabia and Egypt. For days, sonar waves pulsed into the deep. Grid after grid. Silence. Empty seabed. And then it happened. The sonar operator noticed something unusual and called the team over. On the screen were shapes that didn't belong. They weren't jagged like rock formations. They weren't random. They were symmetrical, circular, deliberate. Even more unsettling, they appeared in a long, linear trail across the seafloor. They looked like wheels, hundreds of them. The team deployed the ROV, a robotic eye, descending into waters so cold and dark that human divers could remain there only briefly. Its lights sliced through the blackness. At first, just sand, stone, nothing remarkable. Then, slowly, something began to emerge from the sediment. A perfectly round shape, completely covered in coral, but unmistakably shaped like a wheel. It wasn't just a round shape in the sand, it was unmistakable. A wheel, an ancient, spoked chariot wheel. As the ROV moved forward, another appeared, then another, and another. The debris field stretched for nearly a mile and a half. This wasn't a single wreck. It looked like a disaster. Eventually, the divers had to descend themselves. What they later described was overwhelming, even terrifying. One of them said it felt less like an archaeological site and more like entering a battlefield that had somehow been frozen in time. The seafloor was scattered with what appeared to be the remains of an army, either fleeing or charging. It was impossible to tell. They documented wheels with 4 spokes. Others had 6. Some had 8. That detail matters. Those specific designs align with the types of chariots used by the Egyptian military during the New Kingdom period. The 4-spoke wheels were older models. The 6- and 8-spoke versions were more advanced, stronger, faster, built for elite warriors and possibly even royalty. Finding all of them tangled together in one location was like uncovering a single catastrophic moment, a snapshot of an entire chariot division destroyed at once. And it wasn't just wheels. There were twisted metal fragments that resembled axles, rectangular outlines that could have been chariot cabs, now reduced to corroded bronze and petrified wood, fused into the seabed by centuries of coral growth. Then they found the bones. Bone fragments were woven into the wreckage, hundreds of them. Some clearly belonged to animals, such as skulls, ribs, and leg bones. Horse remains are positioned exactly where they would be if the animals had still been harnessed when they fell. Others were unmistakably human, sections of the spinal columns, pelvic bones, pieces of skull, all mixed in a chaotic tangle that suggested sudden, violent destruction, not a gradual sinking, not a slow decay, but something abrupt, something catastrophic. It did not look like a shipwreck. It looked like an army that never made it back to shore. As one diver swept a high-powered light across a mound of coral, something caught his eye. What was it? How much discovery lay ahead in these waters that had taken Pharaoh and his men a long time ago? Let's see. The unimaginable horror found in the Red Sea. The diver caught a faint glimmer beneath the crust. He paused. There, under layers of hardened marine growth, was an unnatural shine. Not the shimmer of fish scales, not the reflection of sand. Gold. A dull but unmistakable golden sheen. It echoed the most sensational and most widely dismissed claim ever made about this site, that among the wreckage lay a gold-plated chariot wheel, possibly belonging to a high-ranking commander, maybe even the Pharaoh himself. They couldn't touch it. The coral had sealed it in place like concrete, and any attempt to pry it free would destroy whatever remained beneath. So they documented everything. Thousands of high-resolution photographs, hours of high-definition video, detailed scans, precise coordinates. They understood the weight of what they were seeing. It would either redefine history or disappear into silence. But the discovery itself was only part of the story. The location may be even more astonishing. The Gulf of Aqaba is known for its extreme depths. In most areas, the seafloor plunges 5,000 to 6,000 feet, more than a mile straight down. It's essentially a massive underwater canyon, bordered by steep, shadowy walls. For an ancient army, crossing that terrain would be unthinkable, except for one place. Right where the debris field was found, the seafloor changes dramatically. Instead of dropping into abyssal depths, it rises into a broad, flat underwater land bridge, a submerged plateau stretching nearly 10 miles from the Egyptian shoreline at Nuweiba to the coast of Saudi Arabia. At its widest point, the area spans about 5 miles, covering roughly 8 square miles in total. On either side of this natural bridge, the seabed falls sharply into those mile-deep chasms. But across this section, the depth becomes comparatively shallow, forming what appears to be a natural pathway beneath the water. A single corridor, a crossing point. Everywhere else, the Gulf is a wall of impossible depth. Here, it becomes a bridge. The bridge itself isn't shallow in the way we think of shallow water. At its deepest point, it drops to around 900 feet. But compared to the 5,000 to 6,000 foot chasms on either side, it's a raised pathway, a natural corridor cutting through otherwise impossible terrain. The sonar maps make it unmistakable. A massive underwater road, nearly 10 miles long and several miles wide, stretches across the Gulf of Aqaba. Along the Gulf's roughly 100-mile length, this is the only location where an ancient group could have even attempted a crossing. And then, the geography above the water makes it even more compelling. The beach at Nuweiba, where this submerged plateau begins, is vast and open. A wide shoreline bordered on both sides by steep, towering mountains. From a ground-level perspective, there's only one clear entrance, from the west. Once there, there's nowhere to go except forward, into the sea. It mirrors, almost exactly, an ancient account describing a fleeing people trapped between mountains and water, with an army approaching from behind. How true is this account? Does this mean the biblical account was truly what happened? Keep watching to find out. Shocking truth. Pharaoh and his army did not drown, they were swallowed. What makes this detail extraordinary is that the underwater bridge cannot be seen from the surface. There are no visual clues, no shallow water coloration, nothing ancient travelers could have mapped or measured. It can only be identified using modern sonar technology developed thousands of years after the story was first recorded. And yet, the narrative points directly to this precise location. Even more striking is how the artifacts are arranged. The debris field, that mile-and-a-half trail of wheels, bones, and fragments, follows the path of this submerged plateau almost exactly. It doesn't scatter randomly across the Gulf. It traces the bridge. It looks like something was moving across and was overtaken mid-crossing. The depth, around 900 feet, may have played a role in preserving it. Too deep for storms to disturb, too deep for anchors to drag, too deep for casual interference over thousands of years. The deep canyons flanking the plateau create unusual currents. Those currents trap silt and sediment along the raised section, slowly burying whatever rests there. Over time, warm, clear waters encouraged coral growth. And coral does something remarkable. It grows over hard surfaces, wood, bronze, and metal, encasing them. Layer by layer, it turns debris into stone-like formations, locking objects in place like natural concrete. If something catastrophic happened there long ago, the geography and marine conditions would have worked together to preserve it. Hidden, sealed, waiting. They're claiming that at the bottom of the Red Sea, coral-encrusted chariot wheels lie frozen in time. Over thousands of years, the organic materials, wood, leather, and other perishables rotted away. Yet the coral preserved the shape of the objects it grew on. The divers weren't just finding wheels. They were discovering wheel-shaped fossils, echoes of an army long vanished. Without this exact combination of geography and biology, any remains would have scattered, dissolved, or disappeared entirely centuries ago. The land bridge explains more than preservation. It explains scale. Imagine an entire army, hundreds of chariots, horses, and soldiers, funneled into a narrow 10-mile corridor. Once disaster struck, there was nowhere to run. Left or right led straight into abyssal depths. Trapped on this natural bottleneck, the army became a killing floor. And here's where it gets even stranger. If they were really swallowed, what account of the story has science finally agreed to be true? Let's see. How they drowned. The ancient accounts say the waters parted. A path appeared across dry ground. The pursuing army followed, and the waters collapsed, drowning them all. At daybreak, the sea returned to its normal place. Mainstream science calls this impossible. Yet the evidence sits on the sea floor. Something catastrophic happened in that gulf. One theory points to a volcanic event. Around 3,500 years ago, the Greek island of Thera, modern Santorini, erupted in one of the largest volcanic events in human history, a planet-altering eruption. Such a massive blast, hundreds of miles away, could have generated a tsunami radiating across the Mediterranean and connected waterways. And here's the part most people miss. Before a tsunami hits, the water doesn't just surge forward, it pulls back, dramatically. Sometimes for miles, exposing the sea floor. To anyone witnessing this for the first time, it would look like the waters themselves were parting. According to the theory, the fleeing group at Nuweiba found themselves trapped. Then, the Pharaoh eruption triggered a tidal drawback in the Red Sea. The water receded, exposing the 10-mile-long land bridge the people ran across. The pursuing army, desperate to catch them, charged onto the exposed, muddy seabed and never made it across. And so the children of Israel crossed the sea on dry ground. But the drawback is only the first act. The second, and far deadlier, is the return of the water. Just as the pursuing army, weighed down by chariots and horses, reaches the middle of the Gulf, the tsunami strikes. A wall of water surges back, obliterating everything in its path in an instant. The timing, the parting, the collapse of the waters, it aligns almost perfectly with the ancient descriptions. Some theories go even further. A few suggest that what the fleeing group carried wasn't just a religious artifact, but a piece of advanced technology, an energy source, or a weapon stolen from Egypt. The chase wasn't merely about escaped laborers, it was about recovering something of immense power. When trapped at sea, the device allegedly created a dry passage. Once the army was fully committed to crossing, it deactivated and the waters collapsed. This would explain why the Pharaoh risked his elite force in such a reckless charge. He wasn't chasing people, he was chasing something irreplaceable. Whatever the mechanism, natural, supernatural, or technological, the evidence on the seabed tells a consistent story. Something happened in that narrow corridor, something sudden, something violent, something that killed hundreds, possibly thousands, in a single catastrophic moment, and left their remains to fossilize in coral for 3.5 millennia. Yet if the proof is there, documented with high-definition cameras, advanced sonar, and careful exploration, why aren't we hearing about it? Why the silence? And that brings us to the question that haunts the entire story. Why are the experts silent? The world's leading Egyptologists, academics who have dedicated their lives to studying ancient Egypt, have said almost nothing about these findings. The discovery was quietly shared with select institutions, but there was no announcement, no debate, no acknowledgement in mainstream publications. It's as if the sea floor itself holds a secret the world isn't allowed to see. And the response from the academic world wasn't excitement or curiosity, it was silent. Here's what you need to understand about their position. For more than a century, secular Egyptologists have held an absolute consensus. The mass exodus described in ancient texts never happened, at least not on the scale the story claims. This is taught in every major university. It's printed in every textbook. It's the dogma of the field. Scholars point out, correctly, that there is no archaeological evidence in the Sinai Desert for a massive population wandering for decades. Where are the campsites, the mass graves, the pottery? They also note, again, correctly, that there is no record in any Egyptian source, no hieroglyphs, no papyrus, nothing that mentions the destruction of their elite military forces in a single catastrophic day. The entire framework of modern Egyptology, its timelines, king lists, and understanding of New Kingdom power, is built on a foundation that excludes this event. Simply put, the field cannot accommodate it. To the academic establishment, the story is a powerful cultural myth, and a myth is all it is. How does this disagreement relate to the current discovery? Were the academicians and scientists deliberately wrong? Keep watching to find out. Someone is deliberately stealing the evidence. Decades after debunking whatever might be the truth about the Red Sea and how Pharaoh downed with his men, a team of divers, following the maps of a man every serious scholar had dismissed as a crank, has found something extraordinary. A massive underwater debris field that aligns with the ancient account with disturbing precision. This isn't one or two ambiguous artifacts. This is hundreds of chariots, wheels with spoke patterns specific to the Egyptian military of the 18th dynasty. the right time period, the right location, on the only natural crossing in the entire Gulf. If this site is authentic, the experts weren't just slightly wrong, they were catastrophically wrong. A professor who has spent 30 years building a career on the claim that this event is a myth cannot simply reverse course. Their reputation would collapse. Their publications would be rewritten as fiction. Every student they ever taught would have learned something false. The institutional pressure to stay silent, to dismiss, to attack the messenger rather than confront the evidence is immense. But there's a darker whisper circulating among some researchers. What if the silence goes beyond self-preservation? If this discovery were proven beyond doubt, it would provide tangible, physical evidence for one of the foundational events described in texts sacred to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In a world already fractured by religious and political tension, what would that mean? It would elevate one religious tradition above all others with undeniable proof. It would validate claims billions hold sacred, claims billions more reject. This isn't just an academic disruption. It could be geopolitically explosive. And here's the truly disturbing part. The evidence is disappearing. Not slowly, as if worn away over centuries by underwater currents or natural decay, but in ways that suggest deliberate, methodical removal. Remember the golden chariot wheel Ron Wyatt claimed to have found in the late 1970s? A four-spoke ceremonial wheel plated in gold, the kind reserved for the highest Egyptian royalty, possibly the Pharaoh himself. Wyatt said he brought it to the surface, documented it, photographed it, and reported it to Egyptian authorities, fully expecting a celebration for such an extraordinary find. But what happened next is chilling. The wheel vanished. There are no official photographs in any archive, no record of its existence beyond Wyatt's notes and personal documentation. It's as if history itself tried to erase it. There is no museum record, not in Egypt, not anywhere else in the world. No government statement acknowledges that such an artifact was ever recovered, examined, or existed at all. The single most important piece of physical evidence, the one object that could have verified everything Wyatt claimed, simply vanished the moment it left his hands. Skeptics use this disappearance as proof that Wyatt fabricated the entire story. No wheel, no evidence, no credibility. Case closed. But consider a far more unsettling truth. Every element of this discovery, the expedition, the secret coordinates, the debris field itself, traces back to a single man. Who is this man, and why is his hypothesis suddenly becoming relevant now? Keep watching to find out. Ron Wyatt. For decades, the academic world dismissed him as a joke. Ron Wyatt wasn't a professor. He wasn't backed by any prestigious institution. He was a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee, a self-taught biblical adventurer who spent his own money chasing claims mainstream archaeology had already written off as fantasy. He was the ultimate outsider. In the 1970s, Wyatt became obsessed with finding the true location of the Red Sea crossing. He rejected conventional theories about shallow, marshy lakes in northern Egypt. Instead, he followed textual clues pointing to a massive body of water deep enough to drown an entire army. His search led him to the Gulf of Aqaba, to that mountain-locked beach at Nuweiba, and to the submerged land bridge. He reasoned that if this was the site of the crossing, the remains of the destroyed army had to still be down there, waiting to be found. So, in 1978, armed with nothing more than basic scuba gear, a small boat, and a conviction that bordered on obsession, Wyatt did what no one else had dared to do. He went down and looked. What he claimed to find back then is exactly what the 2024 expedition confirmed using $10 million worth of cutting-edge technology. Wyatt reported coral-encrusted chariot wheels. He said he had recovered a hub from one. He took photographs, blurry, grainy, easy to dismiss, but photographs nonetheless. On later dives, he claimed to see human bones and horse bones tangled among chariot parts. And then there was his most explosive assertion, that he had found and even filmed a golden chariot wheel, faintly gleaming beneath layers of coral. When he presented his findings, the academic world didn't just ignore him. They tore him apart. He was called a fraud, a pseudoscience peddler, a religious fanatic, seeing what he wanted to see. Wyatt's other claims didn't help his reputation. He said he had found Noah's Ark. He placed the true location of Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia, directly across from Nuweiba. He claimed the Ark of the Covenant lay in a cave beneath Jerusalem. To mainstream science, this wasn't research. It was fantasy, a treasure hunt fueled by faith, conducted by someone without credentials. Wyatt died in 1999. His claims were still mocked, dismissed, and ridiculed. But he left behind something undeniable: his research, his maps, the exact coordinates of everything he had seen. The 2024 expedition didn't dive blind. They were following the map of the man the world had called a fool. And one by one, their advanced sonar, ROVs, and imaging technology confirmed the impossible things Wyatt had been saying all along. The land bridge? There it was, exactly where he had said it would be. The cameras confirmed it all, the wheels, just as Wyatt had described, 4-spoke, 6-spoke, and 8-spoke designs. The divers confirmed the bones, human and animal alike. And yes, they saw the faint glint of gold, just as Wyatt had reported 40 years earlier. The experts who spent decades dismissing him are now faced with high-definition proof, and they have nothing to say. Large sections of the site that Wyatt had marked as dense with artifacts, areas packed with chariot parts and skeletal remains, are now mysteriously empty. The debris that should be there, according to his records, is simply gone. Natural erosion cannot explain this. The site has been stable for thousands of years, protected by depth and the unique current patterns created by the surrounding underwater canyons. What the team did see instead were drag marks on the seafloor, long, linear scars in the sediment, exactly like what you would expect if heavy objects had been hooked with cables and pulled away. This isn't the random scattering of ocean currents. This looks surgical, intentional, like a cleanup operation conducted over decades by someone with the resources, the access, and the motivation to erase an inconvenient truth from the bottom of the sea before the world could ever see it. The footage is real, the location is precise, and the silence surrounding it is anything but accidental. Because what lies beneath the Red Sea may challenge far more than a single archaeological claim. It may challenge who controls history itself. When evidence disappears, and the people best positioned to explain it choose not to speak, the truth doesn't vanish. It waits, buried beneath layers of politics, reputation, and fear. This story isn't over. It's only been submerged. And as the trail grows colder and the questions sharper, one unsettling thought remains. Were there more from the Red Sea crossing that we do not know? Keep watching to find out. The only account that survived: crossing the Red Sea. According to the only surviving account of the Red Sea crossing, after the devastating plagues strike Egypt, Pharaoh finally agrees to let the Israelites leave. They depart from Ramesses, commonly identified with modern Qantir, the site of the 19th dynasty capital Pi-Ramesses, and travel to Sukkoth, often linked to Tel El Maskuta in the Wadi Tumilat, part of the biblical land of Goshen. From Sukkoth, they move on to Etham, described as being on the edge of the desert. They are guided by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, a visible sign of divine leadership. At this point, God instructs Moses to turn back and camp by the sea at Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal Zephon. The exact locations of these places remain uncertain. No definitive archaeological identification has been made. Meanwhile, Pharaoh changes his mind. He gathers his chariots and pursues the Israelites, overtaking them near Pi-Hahiroth. Trapped between the sea and the approaching Egyptian army, the Israelites are terrified. But the pillar of cloud and fire moves between the two camps, separating the Egyptians from the Israelites. Then comes the dramatic turning point. At God's command, Moses stretched out his staff over the sea. A strong east wind blows through the night, and the waters part. The Israelites crossed on dry ground, with walls of water standing on either side. The Egyptian army follows them into the sea. But at daybreak, chaos erupts. God throws the Egyptians into confusion and clogs their chariot wheels. As the waters return to their place, Pharaoh's army is overwhelmed and destroyed. Seeing this deliverance, the Israelites place their trust in God and in Moses. They respond with worship, singing what is known as the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15, a poetic celebration of victory over their enemies. Scholars such as John Sagan, working within the documentary hypothesis, suggest that this narrative may contain multiple literary layers. According to this view, the oldest layer describes God driving the sea back with a strong east wind, allowing the Israelites to cross. A second layer adds Moses stretching out his hand, causing the waters to divide into two walls. A third layer describes God clogging the Egyptian chariot wheels, leading to panic and retreat. In this version, the Egyptians may not even enter the sea. A fourth layer, reflected in the Song of the Sea, uses more mythic imagery, describing God casting the Egyptians into the deep, the Tehomot, the chaotic oceanic abyss. In this way, the crossing of the sea is not only a dramatic historical claim, but also a richly layered literary tradition shaped over time, blending memory, theology, and poetic imagination into one of the most powerful stories in the ancient world. What do you think about the scary things the divers found in the Red Sea and the ongoing attempt to steal evidence? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us on this scary yet eye-opening journey through the Red Sea. We hope you found this video both shocking and interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more recent discoveries no one ever believed were true. See you there.